Hey everyone, and welcome back to Brian's Horror Movies for Life, and welcome to this 1983 horror movie review. The last movie for the month of July, although we still got August and September, so lots of 1983 horror movies yet to come. So the movie we're going to take a look at today is one that I watched on Shudder. It's a movie that I don't have the physical media for, obviously, and it's kind of a folk supernatural horror movie, and that movie is Eyes of Fire from 1983. So I really didn't know much about this movie other than it has a really sweet cover, like poster, DVD cover. As you can see, I used in my image here for this video. But anyway, let's just go ahead and get into Eyes of Fire. So Eyes of Fire is a 1983 American supernatural horror film written and directed by Avery Kroons in his directorial debut. Set in 1750 on the American frontier, the film focuses on a preacher and his followers who, after being banished from their settlement, are tormented by the spirits of French colonists in a remote forest. So in 1750, on the American frontier during the colonial days, before the United States declared its independence, Fanny and Meg, a young woman and a child, have been discovered by the French military. The two relay a recent series of past events. Both fled their settlement after a new preacher, Will Smythe, is accused of having an affair with two women. The first is Fanny's mother, Eloise, whose husband is away hunting for food, and another woman, Leah, who is insane. The other settlers attempt to hang them, and Will is only saved when his noose rope breaks while Leah babbles incoherently. They leave the camp with a few others who were against hanging the preacher. The couple Jewel Buchanan and Margaret Buchanan, their daughter Kathleen, Calvin and his wife, who goes by the name of Sister, and their granddaughter Meg. As the group travels farther away from the town, the threat of attack from hostile Native American tribes becomes more prevalent until the group is eventually ambushed. Calvin does not survive the attack, but the others are protected by Leah, who used witchcraft to protect them. All the while, the others are unaware that Leah is using magic to keep them safe. The remaining members of the group are forced to abandon their trail along the riverbank and take cover in the woods far from man-made trails. At this time, Eloise's husband, Marion Dalton, returns home to find news that his wife was scheduled to be executed along with Will for adultery, and also learns that the two are on the run with others from the town. Marion pursues and eventually catches up to them. So that's kind of the setup, the premise, the beginning of Eyes of Fire from 1983. As far as the cast goes, we have Rebecca Stanley, we have Guy Boyd as Marion Dalton, Carleen Crockett as Leah, Rebecca Stanley as Eloise Dalton, Dennis Lipscomb as Will Smythe, Sally Klein as Fanny Dalton, Carrie Sherman as Margaret Buchanan, and Rob Paulson as Jewel Buchanan. So yeah, that's the setup, the premise, and the cast for the 1983 American folk supernatural horror movie, Eyes of Fire. I found this to be kind of a mixed bag, honestly. I know it gets praised by a lot of people. There were a lot of positive reviews, even at the time that it came out. I like it, but I don't love it. Now, I will probably watch it again. I don't know if I'm going to rush out and get the physical media for it just yet. Maybe I will if I can get the DVD and it's not overly expensive. But I definitely want to give it a rewatch. But upon first watch, it's kind of a mixed bag for me, which I'll get into now with my review. So let's start with the things that I liked about the movie. The third act of the movie is definitely the best part of the movie. It's where all the action and the horror is, with some really creepy visuals and good phonetic pace to it. Like, I would say the last half hour or so, I'm trying to think if there's a scene or a point in the movie. I don't. It's only a first time watch, so I don't really have it memorized well enough to know the timestamps. But I would say the last half hour of the movie, so the last third of the movie is where it really pays off in terms of, like I said, there's some really cool visuals, like faces in a tree and like creatures and spirits. Well, first of all, you've got like spirits that are like in human being form running around like in white, completely naked, like in all like white makeup or something. Their whole body's white. And then you've got these spirits in the trees and underneath the ground and stuff. Um, it's pretty effectively creepy. It was very effective in terms of like makeup and the look of these spirits or creatures. So that's the first thing that really stands out to me, and most of it is in the third act. I guess you start seeing some of it in the second act as well. I really like and enjoy the setting of the movie, not just the time period of 1750, which is pretty cool. I actually kind of like sometimes period piece horror movies. Um, there's just something about it being set in a different time that kind of makes it more unique from a lot of horror movies. So I like the time period, like colonial America, as well as the setting that the movie takes place. What's the majority of it is in this forest where they kind of set up camp and stuff, and there's a lot of room. They utilize the forest quite a bit with these attacks and these spirits and creatures and everything. So that really worked for me. Again, speaking on the spirits, great practical makeup and creature effects, costumes, um, like in the trees under the ground, just the overall look of these creatures. There's even a small girl who approaches their camp, and of course the preacher guy wants to baptize her and make them one of their own, but there's a little bit more to her than meets the eye. And when when one of our characters, Leah, who kind of uses witchcraft and magic, is able to see the real young girl, I forget her name. I don't think it's in here, but um, she's like dark blue face, and I don't know. The movie does a really good job with some creepy imagery and some really effective practical makeup and creature spirit effects and costumes. So that's definitely what stands out in a positive standpoint. I also think the movie shot pretty well with really good cinematography, a pretty effective score that doesn't it's not too much, but it's just enough to add to the atmosphere in the movie. And this movie does have some pretty decent atmosphere, particularly in the second half of the movie, I would say. So yeah, lots to like about Eyes of Fire from 1983. Those are my pros. As far as cons go, it really took me a while to get engaged in this movie. It's very slow to start. If you want to say slow burn, that's fine. I actually don't mind slow burn horror movies, but for some reason I had a hard time getting engaged and really getting into what they were throwing down in this one. I know the first act and a half is all about character development and plot development and things like that, but I don't know, it just wasn't working for me. I needed a little bit more intrigue, a little bit more I don't know, engagement. It just wasn't working for me. So very slow to start. First two acts I wasn't all that engaged in. No real horror, and the setup of characters and plot just didn't do it for me. Now, I'm probably the minority on that because a lot of the other reviews that I've seen on this movie, that's not an issue for them, and that's great. But for me, I'm not going to lie, it was a little bit too of a slow. It was a little bit too much of a slow burn without giving me anything to look forward to the payoff. Now there was a good payoff, as I said, in the third act, but it was kind of hard to get there. I was almost tempted the next time I watched the movie to just advance it to the third act and watch it as a short, but I won't do that. I'll watch the whole movie again. I got to watch it at least a couple times to give it a fair shot, I feel like. But yeah, it took a while to get going for me, and I was kind of bored at points in the first couple acts. The overall pacing of the movie isn't very strong, which obviously gets to that point that it's well paced in the third act, but I thought it could have been paced overall a little bit better than it was. Some of the acting is a little off kilter, although the acting I would say is average to above average for the most part. There's a couple characters and a couple of scenes where it's a little bit wonky. I wasn't a fan of how they visually changed the picture to look like this sort of animated blue shadowy look. This basically happens whenever Leah's using her witchcraft psychic ability, where all of a sudden it's like what she's seeing is off a shade. It's darker, it's shadowy, it's blue, kind of a blue colors and background palette there. I found that kind of distracting, and I really don't think it was necessary, but I realize they probably wanted you to know that it was a vision or something, but I don't know. That was just something that kind of threw me off. But yeah, overall, guys, I can't really say much more else than that as far as from a negative standpoint. It's a pretty well produced movie that didn't have the highest budget in the world, but there's some production value to it. Like I said, it was upon a first watch, it was just kind of a mixed bag for me. perhaps I'll like it more as I watch it again and maybe even a third time. But as of now, for this first time watch, I'm going to give Eyes of Fire a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 for Eyes of Fire from 1983, the American folk supernatural horror movie. Go ahead and comment down below if you guys have seen Eyes of Fire. What your thoughts are on it. Comment down below. Please like this video, hit the little notification bell, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. It would really help me out for the future content and my channel going forward. I would recommend checking this movie out, especially for those of you that are into folk horror. If you're not into folk horror, you're probably not going to like this movie. Or if you're not into like time period kind of movies, you're not going to like it. But if you are, I would definitely give it a chance. You can watch it on Shudder if you have a membership. Otherwise, I believe I don't know if it's free on YouTube. I don't think it is. You might have to investigate a little bit, but there are other places to watch it, I know. So yeah, I definitely would recommend it as far as like a free first time watch. And if it's something that you like, then obviously seek out the DVD, as I might at some point in the future, but not today. Anyway, with all that being said, I hope you enjoyed the first month of 1983 horror movie reviews. We've still got 2 months to go. In fact, the first video will be cracking right off August 1st here in a couple of days. So stay tuned for that. But with all that being said, thank you for watching. Hope you're enjoying. And as always, stay scared. Bye.